Have you ever wondered what makes someone think about you, even when you're not around? Not just casually remember you, but crave your presence, miss your energy, and replay your words long after the conversation ends. You see, it's not about chasing, it's not about overgiving, and it's definitely not about begging for attention. This is about playing the long game with precision. It's about applying timeless Stoic principles that make your absence feel louder than your presence ever could. Because here's the truth, most men never realize until it's too late. You don't make someone miss you by flooding their inbox or showing up every 5 minutes. You make them miss you by showing restraint, by becoming a man of purpose, by leaving behind something deeper than noise, a mark on their mind. Seneca once said, "Absence sharpens love." That's not just philosophy, that's strategy. In this video, we're breaking down 10 Stoic-based moves that will shift how you show up, and more importantly, how unforgettable you become when you don't. And hey, before we dive in, make a small move right now. Tap that subscribe button. If you're the kind of man who's ready to level up not just in love but in life, this is the channel that backs you with real tools, not fluff. Let's begin the transformation. Principle number 1 is the cornerstone of all the rest. You'll want to hear it. Let's get into it. Number 1, self-sufficiency. Let's start here because without this, nothing else works. Self-sufficiency isn't just a character trait, it's a presence. It's the quiet signal you send without saying a word. It's when a man walks into a room and doesn't need anything from anyone, yet people still feel pulled toward him. Why? Because, in a world full of people begging to be noticed, validated, or chosen, the man who doesn't ask for any of that stands out like fire in the dark. He becomes rare. And when something is rare, it becomes valuable. And when something is valuable, it becomes missed the moment it's gone. Let me ask you, when was the last time you truly enjoyed your own company? No noise, no scrolling, no checking to see who's watching your story. Just you with your own thoughts, your own energy, your own rhythm. If you can master that, if you can find peace there, you automatically become someone others crave. Because you're not chasing, you're not attaching, you're not waiting for a text to tell you you're worth something today. Here's what most men don't get: chasing kills mystery. It says, "I don't believe I'm enough unless you approve of me." That energy is repellent. But self-sufficiency, that tells a different story. It says, "I know my value, and whether you see it or not doesn't change a thing." That energy is magnetic. Let's break it down further. Self-sufficiency means your emotions aren't outsourced. You don't rely on her mood to define yours. You don't spiral when she pulls away. You stay centered. That's Stoic. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. That's exactly the point. When you live from that place of inner power, you don't just attract attention, you earn respect. And here's the part most guys miss: women don't miss men who over-explain themselves, who chase, who try too hard to be liked. They miss the ones who made them feel something deeper and then disappeared without a trace. Now let's talk about what self-sufficiency actually looks like in practice. It looks like a man who builds his day around himself. He doesn't wait around hoping for plans, he has purpose. He reads, he trains, he creates, he refines his mind. And when someone enters his world, they're stepping into something already whole. That's the key. Because when she realizes she's not your oxygen, she starts wondering what makes you breathe so easily without her. And that curiosity, that's what makes her miss you. Here's a subtle Stoic trick. Stop announcing your moves. Move in silence. Let her wonder what you're building. Let her feel that you're occupied with something bigger than her, because you are. It's called your life. And that leads to the most important part of self-sufficiency: emotional detachment from outcome. You don't panic when she pulls back. You don't beg for closeness. You allow space. And in that space you remain grounded. That's what most men can't do. They fill the silence. But silence is sacred. It creates depth. It makes her feel your absence. Self-sufficiency creates an invisible presence. You might not be there, but your energy still lingers. That's power. Now, let me leave you with this. If you want her to miss you, you can't just remove yourself physically. You have to leave a void, something that only your energy fills. And that starts with being complete, with or without her. So here's what I want you to remember. If this hits something deep inside you, type it in the comments right now. I am enough, because you are. And when you start living like it, everything changes. Now don't go anywhere. What we're about to cover next builds directly on this foundation. It'll change how you show up and how deeply you're remembered. Get ready. Number 2. Emotional control. Let's be clear, there is nothing more powerful, more masculine, and more magnetic than a man who knows how to control his emotions. Not suppress, not ignore, control. Because here's the truth. The man who can't master his emotional world will always be a slave to it. And women, they can feel that chaos from a mile away. It's written all over your face, your tone, your reactions, even your silence. But the man who breathes through tension, who doesn't react to provocation, who can sit in discomfort without breaking, that man becomes unforgettable. Let me break it down for you. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't act from every feeling. You observe it, you sit with it, you understand it, and then you decide what to do with it. That's Stoic wisdom in action. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And it's true. Most men destroy their presence because of mental noise, fear, anxiety, jealousy, ego. They let a single message ruin their whole day. One delay, one change of tone, one moment of silence. But emotional control, that's the shield. That's the tool that separates boys from men. Now here's where this connects with being missed. When you react emotionally, when you lash out, chase, overthink, or beg, you show her one thing, that she holds the power, and no one misses what they control. But when you don't react, when you smile, nod, and move on with your life, she begins to wonder, why didn't he flinch? That question lingers. That curiosity grows. And that's where the obsession begins. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say she pulls back. She becomes distant. Most guys start panicking. They text more, call more, try to fix things. That's emotional dependence. It's unattractive. Now imagine a man who notices the same shift. But instead of reacting, he leans into his purpose. He stays calm. He doesn't seek closure. He doesn't chase. He observes. He adapts. What message does that send? It says, I'm not afraid of losing you, because I never lost myself. That's the power of emotional control. Now don't confuse this with being cold or distant. That's not strength, that's just avoidance. Real emotional control means you feel the full weight of the moment, and still move with clarity, with grace, with silence when needed. It means you respond, not react. And here's where things get interesting. Women are wired to test your frame. Not maliciously, but subconsciously. They want to know, can you hold it together when things get uncertain? Can you stay grounded when she's in emotional chaos? If the answer is yes, you become her anchor, her calm in the storm, the one she can't forget because your energy felt safe even when things weren't. And guess what happens when you're gone? She feels that absence like a void, because emotional control leaves an emotional imprint. Your calm made her feel something no one else could replicate. That's what she'll miss. So how do you build it? Practice pause. Before you respond, pause. Before you speak, pause. In that space between stimulus and reaction, you regain your power. Breathe deeper when things get loud. Speak slower when things feel fast. Hold eye contact when you want to look away. Let discomfort pass without needing to fix it. Train your nervous system to be your ally, not your enemy. That's emotional mastery. And listen, I know it's not easy. We've been taught that reacting is being real, that silence is weakness, that calm is boring. But those ideas are lies. The real you isn't the explosion. It's the presence that holds the fuse in peace. And that version of you, that's the one she'll remember when you're not around. Now let me ask you something personal. Have you ever lost someone because you lost control of your emotions? If that hit deep, I want you to comment right now. I choose calm. Say it, mean it, live it. Because when you master your emotions, you master the game. And in the next part, we're going deeper into how to create tension, not through chaos, but through intention. This is where things get powerful. Stay with me. Number 3, intentional communication. Let's be honest, most people talk just to be heard. They ramble, fill silence, or try to impress without ever thinking about the impact of their words. But men who leave a mark, the kind who live in people's minds long after the conversation ends, speak with intention. They don't chase attention with noise. They create presence with purpose. And that's what sets them apart. Intentional communication doesn't mean talking less. It means saying more with less. It means choosing your words the way a sculptor chooses his tools, deliberately, carefully, and with an outcome in mind. In a world of endless chatter, the man who speaks with clarity and conviction commands more than attention. He earns respect. Now let's link this to what Stoicism teaches us. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's the foundation of intentional communication: honesty, discipline, restraint. Speaking only when there is value in what you're about to say. Let's break this down. Imagine you're texting a woman you're interested in. She asks a vague question, maybe even something laced with emotional bait. A reactive man fires back immediately, trying to impress, to explain, to win her over. But the intentional communicator pauses. He reads between the lines. He understands her tone, not just her words. And when he responds, he does it with emotional control, purpose, and strength. That pause, that awareness, that's where attraction is born. A real-world example, say you're on a date, and she brings up something personal. Maybe she talks about past trauma or vulnerability. Most men rush to comfort, to fix. But a Stoic man listens deeply, holds space without judgment, and then says something simple but meaningful. That balance between strength and empathy is magnetic. Intentional communication is also how you establish boundaries without aggression. You don't need to raise your voice to assert your standards. You just need to state them clearly. When you can say, "I'm not okay with that," with calm certainty, you communicate power. And here's the truth: women don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be centered, to know what you stand for, and to communicate it without apology. Body language is part of this too. Your posture, eye contact, the pace of your voice, they all send messages before your mouth opens. Stoics were masters of stillness. And in a world addicted to distraction, stillness is powerful. It tells people you are grounded, not grasping. Want to sharpen this skill? Here's how: first, develop the habit of silence. Not awkward silence, intentional silence. Before replying to a question, take a second. Breathe. That pause shows you're not reactive. You're thinking, and people feel that. Second, eliminate filler. No more. Like you know. Speak with rhythm, not with fluff. This doesn't mean being stiff, it means being precise. Let every sentence carry meaning. Third, speak from your core values. That's the Stoic way. You don't need to memorize lines, you just need to speak from a place of alignment. A man who knows his values doesn't need to overtalk. His presence does the talking for him. One powerful technique is reflective listening. When she says something, reflect it back in your own words before giving your thoughts. This shows you're tuned in, not just waiting for your turn to speak. It builds emotional trust, something most women don't even realize they're craving. Intentional communication also helps you navigate conflict. Instead of reacting with emotion, you respond with principle. You focus on the outcome, not the ego. That alone can de-escalate tension in a way that feels incredibly masculine. Now, let's tie this back to attraction. When a woman feels that your words are deliberate, when she sees that you don't just speak to please but to express your truth, she can't help but lean in. You become a mystery, a man with emotional discipline. And that's rare. So let me challenge you this week: in every conversation, pause before you speak. Be aware of your tone. Choose words that match your values. And watch how people start responding to you differently. If you're serious about becoming the kind of man whose voice carries weight, drop a comment below. I speak with intention. Because in the next part we're going to talk about a communication strategy that requires no words at all, and yet it's one of the most powerful tools you can master. You don't want to miss that. Number 4, acceptance of absence. Here's a truth. Most men don't learn until it's too late. Your absence can speak louder than your presence, but only if you've first made peace with being gone. Not running, not avoiding, but consciously stepping back and allowing space to do what no words can. When you stop trying to force your presence into someone's life, something powerful begins to happen. They start to feel the shape of your absence. And if your presence was built on value, strength, and emotional clarity, your absence becomes magnetic. But the key here is acceptance. Stoic acceptance. Not passive, not resigned, but chosen. You must learn to sit with the discomfort of not being needed, not being missed on command. The Stoics believed in focusing only on what is within your control, your actions, your thoughts, your character. Not how others respond to you, not how quickly they text back, not how loudly they miss you. So when you pull back, don't do it to provoke. Don't ghost. Don't disappear to manipulate. Do it to recalibrate. Do it to restore your center. When you truly accept that you are not the sun in anyone's sky, that people have their own storms, their own seasons, then your stillness becomes strength. Let's talk real-life examples. You've just started seeing someone. Things are going well, but you feel yourself getting anxious. Maybe she's texting less, seems distracted. The average guy starts pushing. He texts more, checks in, too often tries to fix the vibe. But a stoic-minded man observes, steps back, and accepts the moment. He doesn't punish her with silence. He just lets the silence exist, because he understands this. If she values him, the silence will speak for him. If she doesn't, well, better to learn that now. Or maybe you've been in a relationship and she says she needs space. Most men panic. They beg, they bargain, they try to make promises. But here's the truth. If someone needs distance, your job is not to fill the gap. It's to honor it, to step aside with dignity. Because if she truly values what you bring, space won't erase you, it will highlight you. Think of absence like gravity. When something meaningful is removed, its weight is still felt. But that only happens if the presence it left behind had substance. That's where the real work lies. Building a presence that matters, so your absence leaves an imprint. This is where intentional living comes in. If your life is full, if you are driven, focused, and calm, then your absence becomes intriguing. But if your identity is wrapped around someone else's attention, then stepping back just feels like punishment for both of you. Remember what Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Needing to be constantly seen or validated is a chain. When you learn to be unseen without losing yourself, you're finally free. Let's shift the lens. Imagine she pulls away. You feel that sting, the uncertainty, the urge to fix, to chase, but you resist. You stay composed. You lean into your mission, your growth, your stillness. A few days pass. She notices your absence. Not because you punished her, but because you didn't. Because you respected her space. Because you're not emotionally dependent. And that contrast, that's what builds desire. Not drama, not games. Contrast. People don't miss chaos. They miss calm. They miss strength. They miss the way your silence felt like safety. So here's the move. Practice absence. Not out of fear, but out of clarity. Don't be afraid to step back when the moment calls for it. Not to punish, but to protect your energy. To let space do the work only space can do. If you've ever had to accept distance when everything in you wanted to reach out, drop a comment, I stand with silence. Because in the next part, we're going deeper into the way your presence should return when it's time. Because absence isn't the end of the story. It's just the silence between the chapters. Stay with me. Number 5. Mindfulness in interaction. Let's get into something that too many men overlook but is absolutely magnetic when done right: mindfulness in interaction. And no, I'm not talking about some abstract Zen concept that only works in yoga studios. I'm talking about real grounded presence, the kind that instantly shifts the energy in a room, that makes her feel seen without needing to perform. Mindfulness at its core is simple: being fully here. When you're speaking to her, not checking your phone, not scanning the room, not rehearsing your next clever line in your head. When you're listening, you're really listening, not nodding along while plotting your reply. This kind of focus is rare, and in a world full of distractions, it hits different. It stands out. So how does this tie into making someone miss you? Easy. People miss clarity. They miss calm. They miss being around someone who's actually there, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. When you show up with that kind of attention, even in a short conversation, it leaves a mark. Because it's not the loudest voice that's remembered, it's the most present one. Let's bring in some Stoic clarity here. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." And when you operate from that place, when your thoughts aren't scattered, when your ego isn't hunting for validation, your presence becomes peaceful, powerful. You become the retreat. Women feel that deeply. When you're mindful, she senses safety. Not because you're trying to impress her or fix her, but because you're grounded. You're not emotionally scattered, not reactive. You're aware. Think about how different that feels from the usual. Most interactions are rushed, shallow, transactional. People talk at each other, not to each other. But when you bring presence, when you slow down and let silence do its job, she feels like the only person in the room. That's not game. That's depth. Now let's talk application. You're on a date. She's telling a story. And instead of jumping in with a Me Too anecdote or a joke to keep things light, you just listen. You nod. You ask a thoughtful question that shows you actually heard what she said, not just the surface, but the meaning beneath it. That's mindfulness. That's powerful. That's unforgettable. Or maybe you're texting. Instead of firing off rapid replies to keep the vibe alive, you take a breath. You wait. You respond with intention. Fewer words, more weight. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because your words are tied to presence, not impulse. Mindfulness also means awareness of your body language. Are your shoulders relaxed? Are your eyes steady, not darting around? Are you breathing deeply or shallow and rushed? Every physical cue tells her something. The more composed you are, the more she feels at ease. The more you're rooted, the more she feels like she can let go. And here's the part that most men miss. You don't need to say anything profound to leave a profound impression. Sometimes the way you sit with her silence speaks louder than the perfect line ever could. This isn't about being emotionally robotic. It's about emotional discipline. You're not reactive. You don't take things personally. You respond, you don't overreact. You observe, you don't interrupt. That's Stoicism in motion, not cold, not detached, but centered. So what happens when she walks away from a moment like that? She remembers how she felt. She may not recall every word, but she'll remember the feeling of being seen, heard, and understood. That stays with her. That's what she misses when you're not around. So, if you've ever practiced stillness in a moment of chaos, if you've ever chosen awareness over ego, drop a comment, I showed up present. Let's remind each other what real interaction looks like. Because next we're diving into something even more powerful, the art of unpredictable patterns. Stay with me. Number 6. Consistency in communication. Let's be real. Most guys don't lose a woman because they said the wrong thing once. They lose her because their words and actions are all over the place. One day it's sweet and thoughtful, the next it's cold and confusing. That kind of unpredictability doesn't build mystery, it breeds doubt. And doubt kills connection faster than rejection ever will. Consistency in communication isn't about being robotic or saying the same things over and over. It's about being reliable. It's about being the kind of man whose words carry weight because they're backed by follow-through. And more importantly, it's about giving her something rare, emotional stability in a world where most men flinch at the first sign of vulnerability. So, let's break it down. What does consistency actually look like in practice? It means if you say you're going to call, you call. If you say you're busy and will get back to her later, you actually do. If you express interest in something she shared, a goal, a memory, a struggle, you follow up. Not because you're trying to win points, but because your presence has continuity. You're not a highlight reel. You're not just there for the dopamine highs. You're there with intention. Here's the twist though, consistency doesn't mean constant. And this is where a lot of men get it wrong. They think being consistent means texting every day, replying within seconds, always keeping the energy high. But that's not steadiness, that's anxiety in disguise. True consistency is built on integrity, not intensity. It's about aligning your energy with your words in a way that creates trust, not pressure. Let's bring in some Stoic insight here. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That's the Stoic path to consistency. It starts from identity, from self-respect. If you identify as a grounded, respectful, and purposeful man, then your communication becomes an extension of that identity. You don't need to chase, you don't need to perform. You speak with intention, and that intention shows up repeatedly. Now let's go deeper. Why does this make her miss you? Because women, like all of us, subconsciously crave emotional safety, not just in what you say, but in how predictably you say it. If every interaction with you feels stable, it creates a sense of peace. It builds anticipation, not anxiety. And when you're not around, it's not chaos. She feels it's the absence of that peace you brought. That's what creates longing. That's what creates miss you energy. Imagine this, you're talking to someone who always shows up the same, respectful, calm, attentive. No games, no wild shifts in mood. And then suddenly that voice, that energy, that grounded tone is gone. Silence. What do you think happens? She feels it. She wonders, not because you ghosted her or played some manipulative trick, but because you had created an emotional rhythm. And when that rhythm pauses, the silence is loud. Let's put it into a real-world situation. You've had a few great conversations. She's used to the way you express interest, a calm message here, a thought-provoking question there. Then one day, you're less available. Not ice cold, just busy. You communicate that clearly. No drama, no over-explaining. And when you return, you pick back up with the same presence, the same tone, the same rhythm. That's consistency, and that's unforgettable. What she won't miss is a man who's hot one day, distant the next, joking 1 minute and ghosting the next. That doesn't make her curious, it makes her guarded. But a man who speaks like a mountain, still strong, steady, that man is hard to forget. Because his words don't just fill silence, they anchor it. So here's your challenge. Audit your last 5 conversations. Were you consistent? Were you communicating from the same place emotionally? Or were you swinging between trying too hard and not trying at all? Consistency doesn't mean boring, it means dependable. And dependable to a woman who's used to emotional turbulence feels like a superpower. If you've ever worked to bring more consistency into how you show up, not just when you're feeling good, but even when life is messy, drop a comment. I show up steady. Let's remind each other that emotional maturity isn't loud, it's clear. Now, let's move forward, because up next we're talking about a principle that's even harder than consistency. One that reveals who really holds the emotional frame in the room: strategic unpredictability. Stay with me. Number 7. Purposeful living. Let's not sugarcoat this. The most attractive quality a man can possess isn't his looks, his money, or his charm. It's his purpose, his direction, his reason for waking up every day with focus and fire. A man with purpose doesn't chase, he attracts. And he doesn't attract through noise, he draws others in with the sheer gravity of his movement. Now, let's clear something up. Living with purpose doesn't mean you've got every detail figured out. It doesn't mean your life is some perfect blueprint of goals and milestones. It means you're intentional. You know what matters, you know what doesn't, and you move accordingly. Women sense this, always. They notice when a man moves like his time is valuable, when his attention isn't cheap, when his energy isn't scattered chasing things or people to fill a void. Instead, he builds, he protects his mission. He doesn't explain himself every 5 minutes because his actions speak for him. Now here's the thing, when a woman encounters a man like this, something shifts in her. Because most guys don't live this way. They talk about ambition, but they're ruled by distraction. They say they have standards, but compromise them at the first sign of affection. A purposeful man doesn't do that. And that's what makes her feel his presence and his absence on a deeper level. Let me give you an example. Say you're working on building a business. Or maybe you're mastering a craft, writing, training, coding, whatever it is. And in the middle of it, you meet someone who lights a spark in you. Great. You enjoy it, but you don't derail your whole system just to keep her attention. You don't skip training, delay deadlines, or abandon your routine. Instead, you fold her presence into the rhythm of your life. Or you step back when necessary to stay aligned. That right there builds respect. And when you're not around, she doesn't just miss your texts. She misses the direction you gave to her otherwise chaotic emotional landscape. Stoic thinkers knew this well. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That's not a quote about philosophy, it's a code of action. Purpose is a verb, not a slogan. It's not a mood, it's a movement. Purposeful living also brings emotional clarity. Because when you have a bigger mission, you're not over-analyzing texts or wondering where you stand. You're not controlled by fear of loss because your life doesn't pause for someone else's validation. That detachment isn't cold, it's magnetic. It makes people want to earn a place in your world rather than just assume it. Now, Think about the effect this has on someone who's emotionally drawn to you. When you're not clinging, when you're not always available, when your time has weight, your absence becomes more impactful than most men's presence. That's how you make her miss you, not by pretending, not by playing hard to get, but by actually being hard to get because your life is already full of meaning. Let's not forget, a purposeful man isn't rude, he's not dismissive. He listens, he shows up. But he doesn't compromise the direction of his life to soothe someone else's fleeting insecurities. He's anchored. And when he speaks, he doesn't need to raise his voice because his path speaks louder. So here's the question I want you to ask yourself right now. If someone stepped into your life today and watched you for 24 hours, would they be able to feel your purpose? Would it be obvious what you care about, what you're building, who you're becoming? And if the answer's no, don't panic. Don't self-destruct. Get clear. What do you stand for? What are you creating? What are you willing to suffer for? Because that's where purpose is forged, not in comfort, but in commitment. If you're already walking the path and purpose is what guides your every decision, comment below. I lead with purpose. Let the world know you're not here to be liked. You're here to build. And if you're still finding that path good, that means the work has already started. Now stick with me, because up next we're going to talk about a trait that women feel more than they hear, and it's one that few men know how to master. Number 8. Moderation in emotions. Let's talk about something that's both underrated and misunderstood: emotional moderation. In a world that rewards extremes, grand gestures, dramatic outbursts, constant expression, being a man who stays centered is a quiet superpower, especially when it comes to making someone miss you. Why? Because people crave stability even if they don't realize it. And in a sea of emotional chaos, a man who keeps his cool becomes unforgettable. Now, don't get this wrong. I'm not saying shut down your emotions or become robotic. I'm saying master them, show them when they matter, and hold them back when it counts. When a woman interacts with a man who doesn't react to every shift in mood, every delay in reply, or every testing comment she notices, not just with her mind but with her nervous system, she feels the calm. That calm, my friend, creates contrast, and contrast breeds attraction. Let me paint a real-world picture. You're with her and she's trying to trigger some kind of emotional spike. Maybe she teases you. Maybe she pulls back to see how you'll respond. If you match her energy with neediness, anxiety, or confusion, you become predictable, replaceable. But if you stay cool, not distant, just composed, suddenly she's off balance. Not in a manipulative way, but in a magnetic one. Because she starts wondering, why doesn't he flinch? What's going on behind that calm exterior? That curiosity turns into fascination, and that fascination turns into memory. Stoic philosophy champions this idea at its core. Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." And part of that bravery isn't charging into battle, it's sitting with an emotion without becoming it. You feel anger, but you don't lash out. You feel longing, but you don't beg. You feel disappointment, but you don't lose your dignity. That's strength. That's masculinity. Here's the kicker. Moderation in emotion doesn't just make you more attractive, it makes you less forgettable. Because people associate calm with depth. They assume that stillness hides strength. And when you're not around, that calm lingers like an echo. She remembers the space you created, not with words, but with presence. Let's go deeper. This moderation also keeps you sane. It prevents you from making impulsive moves, from sending that fourth text, from needing constant validation, from abandoning your path just to hold on to someone who hasn't even proven their worth. Because when your emotions are balanced, you're not easily swayed. You remain the mountain, not the weather that moves around it. Now I get it. Some of you might be thinking, But isn't vulnerability important? Absolutely. Vulnerability is powerful. But true vulnerability isn't unloading everything all at once. It's choosing what to reveal and when. And when you're in control of your emotional expression, your vulnerability hits harder because it's rare, earned, respected. Let's not forget women are intuitive. They notice shifts in tone, micro-expressions, body language, and if they see that you react to everything, they categorize you quickly: emotional, uncertain, unsafe. But if they sense that you observe more than you speak, and you express with intention rather than impulse, something deeper forms. It's not just attraction, it's intrigue. And intrigue doesn't fade overnight. So how do you build this moderation? Practice stillness, not fake silence, real awareness. When an emotion hits pause, don't run from it, and don't throw it at someone else. Sit with it, name it. Ask if acting on it serves your purpose or sabotages it. Train yourself to breathe before you speak, and always remember, not everything deserves a reaction. Sometimes silence is the strongest response. To the men listening right now, ask yourself, when was the last time you felt something strongly, but chose not to show it immediately, not to suppress it, but to control it? That moment, that pause, that's where power lives. If this resonates with you, drop a comment below. I lead with calm. Say it as a commitment to yourself, not to impress anyone else. Because at the end of the day, when you walk away from someone, or even just create space, they don't miss your outbursts or your dramatic expressions. They miss your presence. And presence comes from poise. Stick around, because up next, we're going to explore a deeper layer, one that changes how people perceive your words, your time, and your value. Number 9. Resilience in adversity. Let's be honest, nothing exposes a man's character more than how he handles adversity. You can charm in comfort, you can impress when life is good. But when the storm hits, that's when people see the real you. And when it comes to making others remember, you miss you, even resilience becomes one of your most magnetic traits. Think about it, most people crumble when pressure mounts. They panic, complain, or seek instant relief. But when you stand tall while others fold, when you stay composed in chaos, you don't just survive, you leave an imprint, a psychological fingerprint that lingers in people's minds. Now, this kind of strength isn't loud. It's not about pretending everything's fine or masking pain with bravado. Resilience is quieter than that. It's the ability to absorb hardship without being defined by it. It's feeling the weight without letting it bend your spine. And it's incredibly rare, especially in today's world of instant gratification and emotional fragility. From a Stoic lens, resilience is a cornerstone. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic minds, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That quote hits hard because it cuts to the core of what Stoic resilience means. You don't control the storm. You control how you sail through it. And when you show that kind of emotional grit, people take notice, especially women. See, when a man endures setbacks without losing himself, it signals something primal: security, safety, strength. These qualities are deeply attractive, not because they're flashy, but because they're grounding. In a world full of men who crack under pressure, a man who adapts and grows through struggle becomes unforgettable. Let's ground this with a scenario. Imagine your business takes a hit, or you lose a job, or a relationship ends abruptly. Instead of spiraling into bitterness or desperation, you channel your energy inward. You rebuild quietly. You stay off social media rants. You don't broadcast your losses, you convert them into momentum. Maybe you go back to the gym. Maybe you study, invest, hustle behind the scenes. When you re-emerge, you're sharper. stronger, more composed. That kind of bounce back doesn't just build self-respect. It builds intrigue, because people who saw you fall start wondering how you got up, and those who took you for granted begin to rethink your value. That includes women who once thought they had you figured out, because now they don't. And mystery, when paired with growth, creates longing. Here's something most men don't realize. The more resilient you are, the less reactive you become. And the less reactive you are, the more people project meaning onto your silence, your distance, your absence. This is how missing someone begins. It doesn't start when you disappear. It starts when your presence carried weight, especially in adversity. Stoicism teaches that adversity isn't something to avoid, it's something to train for. Like a mental gym, each challenge is a rep, each struggle a stretch. And over time, that emotional muscle becomes the kind of strength that no external event can shake. That's why you see some men walk through betrayal, failure, even grief, and come out more focused, more alive. They're not suppressing, they're transcending. But make no mistake, resilience isn't just for show. It's not about being stoic to impress. It's about choosing peace over panic, direction over drama. And that choice, over and over again, builds a version of you that people don't forget, because they know when life gets hard, you don't run, you rise. So if you're in a tough season right now, good. This is your forge. This is where your future self is built. And if you can keep your heart open while your world closes in, you'll be the kind of man who doesn't just endure, he inspires. If this message resonates, drop a comment. I rise under pressure, not for validation, but as a declaration. Because your resilience doesn't just define how others see you. It defines how you see yourself. Stick with me, because in the final part of this series, we're going to wrap everything up with a principle that ties all the others together. It's not just about what you do or how you act. It's about what you leave behind. Let's finish strong. Number 10. Consistency in character. Here's the truth. Most men overlook charisma might attract, but character is what keeps people hooked long after you've left the room. And more than just having good character, what truly sets you apart, what makes them miss you deeply, is consistency in that character. Not just in moments of triumph, but especially when no one's watching, and when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or costly. Let's break it down. We live in a world where shifting values, emotional impulsiveness, and constantly changing masks are the norm. People say one thing today and act the opposite tomorrow. Standards bend. Principles fade under pressure. And when someone shows up, grounded, someone who lives what he says and says what he means, he becomes unforgettable. Especially to a woman who's used to dealing with inconsistency wrapped in charm. Stoicism teaches us that the external world is unstable and out of our control. But our inner world, that's where our power lies. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In other words, decide the man you want to be. And then commit to being him every single day, no matter the weather outside or the mood inside. That commitment is rare, and because it's rare, it's valuable. Let's say you're calm and composed when things are easy, but lash out when things go sideways. Or you're respectful around her friends, but passive-aggressive in private. Or you make promises on a date, but don't follow through in action. Whether you realize it or not, that inconsistency chips away at trust, and without trust, no connection, romantic or otherwise, can truly stick. But when you're consistent in how you treat others, how you handle yourself, how you show up, even if you're quiet, even if you're mysterious, you leave a mark. A dependable man is a rare breed, and a woman who's been through enough chaos in her life will crave that stability. She'll notice how you don't talk about values, you live them. You don't just show confidence, you embody calm. You're not swayed by trends, drama, or petty games. Your compass doesn't spin when things get turbulent. And that right there builds the kind of absence that echoes when you're gone. Here's where the Stoic mindset strengthens this idea. You don't need external validation to define your behavior. You don't perform character, you anchor in it. You don't mold yourself to get attention. You hold your shape whether eyes are on you or not. And that reliability becomes part of your presence. Even when you're not physically there, your name carries weight. Think of it like this: if your character is a lighthouse, then consistency is the light that never flickers. Ships may come and go, storms may roll in, but your signal stays steady. You're not chasing affection. You're not adapting to get approval. You're being you the same, today, tomorrow, next month. And in a world full of noise, that quiet strength is magnetic. And let's be honest, women, remember how you made them feel. They remember if they felt safe, respected, and seen around you. But they also remember if they had to guess which version of you they were going to get that day, if your mood swung like a pendulum, if your principles bent under pressure. So when they meet a man whose actions align with his words, who responds rather than reacts, he stands out. He creates contrast. And that contrast sticks in her mind. So how do you build that consistency? It starts with self-awareness. Know your values. Be clear on your non-negotiables. Understand what kind of man you respect and become him, regardless of what others are doing. Then comes discipline. Stay the course even when it's not convenient. Practice emotional control, not suppression. Keep your word, especially when it's hard. And most of all, don't seek applause for doing the right thing. Do it because it's who you are. This is the man who gets remembered, not the loudest, not the flashiest, the one who walked the talk, the one whose presence brought peace, and whose absence was felt because it took stability with it. You want to make her miss you. Don't try to impress her with stories or strategies. Impress her with consistency in character. Let her feel the depth of your steadiness. Let her see that no matter where she looks in your life, your words, your actions, your energy, it all aligns. That's the man she doesn't forget. Thank you for watching all the way through. If today's message hit home, if you're serious about becoming a man of strength, calm, and quiet power, don't stop here. Subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss another video. Every piece of content is designed to sharpen your mindset, build your presence, and guide you toward a more grounded, purpose-driven life. And if you're ready to take it to the next level, become a channel member. When you join, you're not just supporting the work we do, you're stepping into our Stoic brotherhood. A private community of men like you focused on mastering their emotions, owning their purpose, and becoming truly unshakable. Thanks again for being here. I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Stay strong, stay focused.